It happened on a quiet country road where no one usually passed. An elderly woman was returning home from the village market when two tiny puppies suddenly appeared in her path. Mud-covered, trembling, and crying softly, they raised their little paws as if begging for help. She thought they were lost, but when she looked closer, her heart froze. Something about the way they acted didn't seem normal. Their eyes darted toward the woods, their whimpers desperate, pleading for her to follow. Something was waiting there, something they wanted her to see. What the old woman discovered that day would uncover a truth so heartbreaking it would bring an entire town to tears. The sun had just begun to dip behind the hills, painting the quiet countryside in shades of gold and amber. The air was cool, carrying the scent of wet earth and freshly cut grass. Along a narrow dirt road, Martha, a kind-hearted woman in her late 70s, walked slowly with her wooden cane in one hand and a small wicker basket in the other. Every evening, she made this same journey home from the village market, humming softly to herself, but today felt different. The road was unusually silent. No birds, no rustling leaves, only the distant hum of crickets. Then, out of nowhere, a faint whimper broke the stillness. Martha stopped, her eyes narrowing. From behind a bush, two tiny puppies stumbled onto the path. Their fur was matted with mud, their little bodies trembling. They looked up at her with wide, pleading eyes and let out soft cries that pierced her heart. "Oh, you poor babies," she whispered, setting her basket down. As she bent forward, the puppies raised their front paws, standing on their hind legs as if begging for help. In that quiet moment, Martha's evening walk turned into something she would never forget. Martha knelt on the dusty path, her heart aching at the sight of the two frightened puppies. "It's all right, little ones," she murmured, her voice trembling with warmth. She reached into her basket and pulled out a small piece of bread, breaking it gently in half. "Here, eat something." But to her surprise, neither puppy moved toward it. Instead, they stared at her with desperate eyes, whining softly, then looked back toward the dense woods ahead. One of them tugged lightly at the hem of her skirt, letting out a pitiful cry. Martha frowned. "You want me to follow you?" she asked softly. The puppies barked once, sharp, urgent, as if answering her. Leaning heavily on her cane, she rose to her feet. "All right then," she said, adjusting her shawl. "Show me where you want to go." The puppies turned immediately, trotting a few steps down the narrow path before stopping to glance back at her, waiting. Their tiny tails wagged nervously, and their whimpers grew louder the further they went. Martha followed, her old shoes crunching against the gravel. The road soon gave way to tangled weeds and shadows, but she didn't turn back. Something deep inside told her these little creatures weren't just lost. They were leading her to something important. The forest grew denser with every step. Branches reached low, brushing against Martha's shawl as she pushed forward. The light dimmed, filtered through the thick canopy above. Her cane sank into the soft earth, and her breath came heavier with each step. But the two puppies never slowed down. They trotted ahead, glancing back every few seconds, making sure she was still following. "Careful now," Martha whispered, her voice echoing softly through the trees. The ground was uneven, covered in wet leaves. In the distance, a faint, sorrowful sound drifted through the still air, like a weak whimper carried by the wind. She stopped, her pulse quickening. The puppies barked again, more urgently this time, and darted toward the sound. Martha followed, clutching her cane tightly, her heart pounding in her chest. The trail narrowed to a small clearing. The grass here was trampled, the soil disturbed. Something, or someone, had been here recently. The whimpering grew clearer now, soft but steady. "Where are you taking me, little ones?" she asked, her voice trembling between fear and hope. Then one of the puppies ran ahead, disappearing behind a fallen tree. A moment later, it barked sharply, 3 times in a row. Martha steadied herself, moved closer, and whispered, "Dear Lord, what am I about to find?" Martha's steps slowed as she rounded the fallen tree. What she saw made her gasp, her hand flying to her mouth. There, half buried beneath branches and damp leaves, sat a cardboard box, soggy, torn, and trembling slightly from movement inside. The 2 puppies she had followed began scratching at it frantically, whining louder than before. Her heart pounded as she knelt down, ignoring the chill of the wet earth. With shaking hands, She peeled away the branches and lifted the flap. Inside were 3 more puppies, huddled together, their tiny bodies shivering violently. Their fur was matted with mud, their breaths weak and uneven. One of them barely opened its eyes, letting out the faintest cry before going still again. "Oh, you poor angels," Martha whispered, her eyes welling with tears. Who could do something so cruel? Without a second thought, she pulled off her shawl and wrapped all 3 inside it, holding them close to her chest for warmth. The 2 older puppies pressed against her knees, as if protecting their siblings. Tears rolled down Martha's wrinkled cheeks. "Don't you worry," she whispered, voice cracking. "You're safe now. I've got you." The forest was silent except for the sound of her sobs and the soft whimpers of the tiny survivors. That moment, under the fading light, became one she would carry in her heart forever. Martha hurried home through the darkening woods, clutching the bundle of shivering puppies against her chest. Her legs ached, but she didn't stop once. When she finally reached her little cottage, she rushed to the fireplace, lighting it with trembling hands. The room quickly filled with the crackle of warmth. She placed the puppies in a basket lined with soft towels and began rubbing their tiny paws to restore circulation. Her old kettle whistled in the background as she prepared warm milk. One by one, she fed them with a small spoon, whispering words of comfort. The 2 older puppies she'd met first refused to rest. They circled the basket protectively, eyes wide, tails lowby morning. The puppies were breathing steadily again. Martha called the local veterinarian, Dr. Lewis, who arrived shortly after. His expression darkened as he examined the rusted collar fragments Martha had found near the box. "These markings," he said quietly, "they match the logo of a breeder the authorities have been investigating. Someone tried to get rid of evidence before inspection." Martha's heart broke. She looked down at the 5 tiny lives nestled together, innocent victims of someone else's cruelty. Dr. Lewis smiled faintly. "You saved them just in time. But I think it was they who found you." Martha nodded, eyes glistening. Maybe. They knew who'd listen. Weeks passed, and Martha's quiet little cottage came alive again. The once weak puppies now ran freely across her garden, chasing butterflies and tumbling over each other with joyful barks. The smallest one, the one she thought wouldn't make it, was now the most playful of all, always clinging to Martha's skirt wherever she went. Every morning, she would sit on her porch with her cup of tea, smiling as the puppies wrestled in the sunlight. "My little miracles," she'd whisper, her heart swelling with love. News of her rescue spread quickly through the village. People began calling her the grandma with the golden heart. Children would visit after school, bringing treats and toys for the puppies. Even the local news station filmed a short story about her act of kindness, touching hearts across the country. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned to gold, Martha looked at the 5 growing pups gathered around her feet. "You were left to die," she said softly, stroking their fur. "But you taught me, and everyone else, what true love looks like." The puppies wagged their tails as if they understood. Sometimes, the smallest cries for help lead to the greatest miracles, and Martha had answered theirs.